Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Breaking Bread with Fred. My name is Fred. This podcast is about being a more positive person in our negative world. Simply put, this is my journey where I'm trying to discover how to be more positive and be the positive light that I expect to see in other people. And if that's something that you want to do, I'm inviting you to come along and be with me on this journey. Simply put, we need to be the positivity that we expect to see in other people and ultimately the world. Today, let's talk about something that has the power to lift you from a negative place to a very positive place in life and put you on the path of a renewed hope. If you've gotten to the point to where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you do not see that light at the end of the tunnel, and every word that comes out of your mouth you find that's negative and you're wondering where that comes from. Stay tuned with me for a few moments and let's talk about this journey on how to become more positive in one simple word: mindfulness. See, let's explore how this word mindfulness can lead to hope, and it can cultivate things in our life that will reduce our anxiety, reduce our stress, and give you and me more resilience in our lives. I think mindfulness is one of those times that countermands our human instinct to just go with the flow. Plus, during this podcast, I'll give you some things that you can do to be more deliberate and to be more intentional and set you on that path to positivity and to always trying to do what's right. Now, why do we need more mindfulness and more hope in our lives? Why? Because you and I both know that one of the tenets of our society, whether we like it or not, our society breeds and feeds negativity. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just do a couple of things. Turn on your television for just a few moments and see how much negativity is spun there. Talk to your best friend or some friends, more than 2-minute conversation, and you're going to find out that sooner or later, negativity is going to spew out of their mouth. And I'm tired of people dismissing it and making excuses for being negative. Well, we're just human, or that's just the way I am, and you have to like me and accept me. No, absolutely not. And by the end of this podcast, hopefully, I can give you some things to think about to show that if we exercise more mindfulness, if you and I just do some things deliberately and intentionally, we can turn the page, we can turn the table to really becoming a more positive person. You remember that old saying that says a lie spreads faster than the truth? Well, you ever thought about that? The idea of an untruth spreading faster than the truth is really something that's always been fascinating to me. I used to work in a warehouse for one of the big box delivery companies. And that was an environment that was just negative from the start. Think about it. When you have to be at work at 3:30 in the morning and you load packages and you load trucks and you work with people at the times of the day or the times of that morning where you're not exactly catching people at their best, that entire environment, if you're not careful, can feel and breed negativity. There was one time that I fell victim, sadly, to this negative environment, and I try to blame the environment, but truthfully, I wasn't being as positive and as honest and as willing and forthright as I should have been. There was something that happened in the warehouse where something came up missing. The supervisors were asking all of the workers, did you know anything about this particular missing item? And all of us knew exactly what happened. One of the coworkers helped himself to what we call a 5-finger discount, and the item came up missing. And when we were individually asked about it, we all stuck to the same story. No, don't know anything about it. Well, you know what? That wasn't true. In fact, that was a lie. And that lie actually haunts me really to this day, because instead of just going with the flow, all I had to do was stand up, tell the truth, and let the chips fall where they may. See, I wasn't mindful. Oh, I was thinking about the group and I was thinking about my buddies. But the truth is, I didn't take a stand to really do what's right. I wasn't mindful. What's mindful? Mindfulness is really the practice of being intentionally focused on the present, on what's going on, and be completely free without judgment. Being proactively deliberate and intentional about matters that are within your control. In other words, we've got to take more responsibility for what we can control in the moment and be more of a positive influence. I like the saying, I think it's attributed to Alcoholics Anonymous, grant me the power to accept the things that are within me to accept and that I cannot change, and to control the things that I can. See, that's mindful and that's being intentional. If we are truly mindful, we are in the moment instead of dwelling on the past, instead of dwelling on, as my aunt used to say, my woulda, shoulda, and coulda. If we're intentional in the moment, then I wonder how much positivity can radiate from that. See, there's a connection that I should have made years ago in that warehouse and I didn't make, but I can look back on it. I can make it now. There's a connection between mindfulness and hope. When you get to the point to where you're in despair and you think all hope is lost and you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, 5 will get you 10 that you aren't being mindful. And you've lost, like me in that warehouse, you lost the connection between mindfulness and hope. See, when we feel overwhelmed, our minds often go to the worst case scenario, and that forces us to focus on being in despair. Well, mindfulness, or what I'm calling intentionality, it interrupts that cycle and it helps to ground us in the present moment. And we gain control of our thoughts, we gain control of our emotions, and we allow that shift to go from hopelessness to a more positive perspective. Let's go back to that warehouse for a second. All I had to do was go to the supervisor privately and say, yes, I know something about it, but I really don't want to get anybody else in trouble. And maybe the situation would have been dealt with anonymity rather than just letting it go and the wrong thing happening. So one of the things I want to do is give you some steps, me too, some steps in this to help us to be more mindful, to be more intentional. In baseball, when a hit has happened and that runner is getting ready to go, we got to stop that runner from tagging and making all the illustrations and making all the runs and getting around. One of the things I want us to do is to really look at how mindful we are in every situation and making sure that we are the best we that we can be, even in the midst of a negative circumstance. I'm coming at it like this. The last time that you made a decision that you're not pleased with, how did you feel at the end of that outcome? Was it something that you could look back on with pride? Or was it, sadly, like me in the warehouse, something that didn't reflect your best self? Let me give you a few tips on how we can be more mindful in each situation, and little by slow, we can transform from being a negative influence to the positivity that we want to see in other people. Number one, I think we need to start our day with a mindful tone or a mindful pause. When we first get up, the first habit that I have, is reaching for my phone and checking the messages or seeing who I need to call. Well, before I reach for my phone, what I've decided to do is just be still for a few moments and just center myself and just be thankful that I was even able to wake up, and find one thing before your feet hit the floor. Find one thing that you can be thankful and be positive about. And remind yourself as you start your day, I'm going to be more positive and I'm going to be more focused. Number two, sometimes, depends on the situation, you may have to give yourself a mindful pep talk. Growing up in the South, my mother gave us a speech. I'm the oldest of three children. And so we would get a speech before we would go into the store. We grew up in a rural area of our town. And so going shopping was a chore, to travel some miles to get to the store. And we were challenged to be on our best behavior. Your mom may have given you a version of the same speech, but my mom looked at us, lined us all up, me and my two sisters, and it went something like this. Listen, now we finna go in this store. Don't touch nothing. Don't ask for nothing, because you ain't getting nothing. Everybody understand me? Yes, ma'am. Okay, let's go in the store. And we, in turn, then knew how to act. Well, I think we need to give ourselves a pep talk when it comes to positivity. I think we need to look around at the things in our life and stop focusing on what's not right and start being thankful and grateful and mindful and intentional on what is right. Number three, and there's this online trend that went on. I'm not sure if it's still going on now, but it says we listen and we don't judge. See, we need to observe some things that's going on in our environment or in our lives without judgment. I've got a friend who is in the social work business, and this TV show that used to come on called Hoarders that really used to upset my friend. Now, I watched a couple of episodes, and probably like you, I thought it was funny that a person would let their home get into such a state to where all they could do was have a path to walk through. And, I used to kind of get a kick out of the few episodes I would watch and kind of shake my head. And how can somebody live in that squalor? My friend called me one day and we were talking. And she said, I think the worst show on television is that show Hoarders. And I asked her, I said, why? She said, one of the things you got to understand is in social work, what we try to do is we try to get the backstory. And if we can help people connect the dots as far as the backstory, what happened in the past may help them in their present and then on to the future. She said, I can't stand that show because all they show is right now. We don't know the full story. We don't know how that person got to that point. And I thought about it. That is true. And that's a life skill. We tend to often look at people and judge people where they are right now. And I've done this. But sadly, we don't know the story. We don't know the backstory and what it took to get them here. So you might, to be more mindful and to be more intentional, you might do like we told them online. We listen, but we don't judge. We got to learn the backstory on what helps people in their circumstance in the past, shapes their present, and helps them in the future. And then, if we're going to be more mindful, I think we've got to find hope even in the small moments of our lives. Try to focus on the small things instead of looking at the big picture and really getting frustrated. Look at the small wins. Remember, it's a cinch by the inch, but it's hard by the yard, and it takes a while by the mile. If we look at small wins, maybe today is too big to take on a new goal, but maybe for the next hour, I can certainly do that. That hour will then lead to a day. That day will lead to a week, and so on and so forth. So we need to look for positivity and change in our smaller steps in life. Then I think we need to also look at how much negative inputs do we have? How many things around us are feeding in to this negativism that we can actually control? Are we watching maybe things on television or listening to conversations that really feed into the negativity? Or do we need to just kind of unplug and tune out for a while? Maybe we need to replace the negative influences with things that are actually more positive. There was a period in my life where I used to love horror movies. Don't judge me. Don't judge. And so at a certain point, I realized the negative influence that actually came from those horror movies, and I had to unplug them. I had to stop watching them. Why? Because they were leading to some things that weren't very positive in my particular life. Second, the other thing we need to look at is maybe you need to practice a little more compassion. Maybe you gotta give yourself a break. It's okay to not be okay. And one of the things that I understand in self-compassion is give yourself a break. When you learn better, you do better. But you can't do better and learn better without knowing better. There's everybody who knows me knows that I'm a big Star Trek fan. And I think a lot of life lessons that we can learn actually, I think, come from the Star Trek universe. And one of the things that if we're going to truly connect with other people and be more of a positive influence in a very meaningful way, one of the episodes that I remember that was called Hollow Pursuits was when Reginald Barkley was seeking meaning, but he was doing it inside the holodeck. That's an oxymoron. He was really looking for purpose and connection, but he was trying to do it in private and trying to do it on his own terms. You know, that's kind of like us in life. We want our own terms, but we want connection with people. That's one of the things I love about the Star Trek universe and the Federation. You got people all pulling together for one common goal. We're not there yet in our society, sadly, but one day we'll be there. And if in fact I'm really looking for connection with other people, it's not going to have to be on their terms. It's going to be on your terms and my terms. And it's going to always have to feed into and be based on positivity rather than negativity. See, if I want to live in isolation, isolation fuels despair. See, so I need to make it a habit to engage in mindful conversations and be proactive, even if it is a wellness check, just for a few moments to go check on somebody else. See, hope is not something that just appears. Hope is something that we cultivate through our decisions, through our actions. Mindfulness is one of the most powerful tools. Being deliberate and intentional and not just going with the flow is one of the more powerful tools that we have in our arsenal. But sadly, I don't think we use it nearly enough. So if you're like me and you were struggling with despair, and you were at the end of your rope or you've lost hope, then I encourage you to start over. I encourage you to back up and start small. Start with the small wins in life. Put 2 or 3 of these things that we talked about into practice and see if that doesn't change your behavior and help you on this journey to be a more positive person, to be that influence and that light that you want to see in other people. See, this could be the very transformation that you're looking for in other people. Sadly, we've got to start demonstrating that. We've got to start overcoming this despair and this transformation that you're looking for in the world. Maybe, just maybe it starts with you. So stay mindful, stay hopeful, stay intentional, stay deliberate, and remember every day is a fresh start to being the more positive person that you want to see in others. It starts with you. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Breaking Bread with Fred. If this information has been relevant and you can relate to this, share this with other people and invite them to come along on this journey of transformation as we intentionally try to transform from being more negative to being more positive. This has been an episode of Breaking Bread with Fred. Till next time, I bid you peace.